What's going on, Conscious Crew? It is your favorite breakdown commentator, CTV, doubling background so that we can get into the discussion we were supposed to get into previously, but that show kind of took on a whole nother world and identity of itself. So when you guys get finished with this particular live stream, definitely make sure that you guys go back and, you know, get into all of the things, shall. All right. We're here to get into a rather controversial subject matter, because in this discussion, we'll obviously be talking about transphobia, queerphobia. We'll be talking about closure, disclosure, etc. Girl, we're going to get into all those things that, you know, trigger up so much thought and opinion. And if my guest is here for it, at some point we will also drop the link to allow you guys to definitely chime in. But before we do so, I need you guys to go ahead and give me a nasty piece of thumbs up on this video, girl. Thumbs up until it is absolutely stuck. All right. Not only does thumbing up helps with YouTube's algorithm, but more importantly, thumbing up also triggers up the notification system. So when you are thumbing up the video, you are literally knocking on the digital door of another Conscious Crew member, telling them to get their arses into the sanctuary, because the king is indeed Kangain. All right. Also, make sure that you share this stream out to wherever it is you have digital community, whether that be MySpace, Your Space, Facebook, Twitter, the dark side of, or your personal OF. I don't really give a damn where you lay the link. Just let them whores know that we're allowed live and in color. With no further ado, yes, go ahead and push on through. Okay.
I know a place where you can recharge your soul.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
And in the midst of brokenness, he gon' see your asshole.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
You gon' heal, you gon' laugh and catch a little shade.
Ooh, girl.
Y'all know he be slaying, y'all better stop playing. Come hear what he's saying.
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, what's going on, Conscious Crew? Let me go ahead and speak to you guys coming into the building. Please, 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 thumbs up on your way in, even if you are a Bush baby or a part of the Replay Gang. All of your thumbs up makes a whole damn difference on this platform, okay? Shout out to Rumors and Tea. Hey, Boo. What's going on, Lady D? Hey, Kiwana. What's going on, Ashley? Hey, Sniper. What's going on, Ian Gardner? Hey, Deborah. Hey, Just Be Real. What's going on, Lat One? What's going on, Patrice? What's going on, Sniper Girl? Hey, TST. What's going on, Yolanda? Hey, Patty. What's going on, Logic? Hey, Boo. Trans Lives Matter, period. What's going on, Aston? Hey, Saki Speaks Easy. Hey, Bill. What's going on, The Cat's Den? Hey, Miss Monica. Hey, y'all. So with no further ado, let me go ahead and bring up my guest, who, of course, is an epic usher over here as well, honey. She really needs no introduction because she is she. What's going on, Intersex?
Hey, y'all.
Hey. How you feeling? How you doing today?
I'm feeling.
Feeling. I know the feeling, girl. You just feel it, child. Well, I'm happy to have you here, and I'm even more excited to have this discussion because as always, these discussions, you know, they create, first of all, a great think tank for those who are really wanting to understand the trans experience and intersectionality. In the way that, you know, orientation and gender intersects also with ethnicity and culture. You know, these discussions always kind of lead to a bigger, deeper dive into just the way our worlds come together and why our experiences are kind of shaped the way they are, especially when it comes to social violence, when it comes to interpersonal violence, etc. And so I'm happy that we can discuss this. I think that it's also equally unfortunate that we are discussing this under the context of a trans woman losing her life.
Mm-hmm.
We'll also be following up a story in this commentary with a trans woman who's being penalized for defending her life. So, you know, the pendulum is going to swing in all types of directions here. But before we get there, do you want to shout out your social medias to the people? We'll tell them a little bit about yourself before we, you know, get into the things.
Okay, so my social media, I have an Instagram and TikTok. It's both the same name.
Are you there, bro? Okay, yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
It went out for a minute, but I'm back now. You back now? Yes.
Okay. Should I repeat it?
Yeah, repeat it for us.
Okay. So I have an Instagram and I have a TikTok. Both the same name. Is Aja Alexandria. Is AJAALEXANDRIA on Instagram and TikTok. I can't believe I'm sharing this, but go on.
That's it, honey. Small steps create big wheels. Okay, period. Also, I want to shout out my baby mother, Patricia. Thank you, boo, who says I miss you, sexy, miss you even more, baby mother. Thank you so much for the audacity, piece of kiss. Yeah, honey. Okay, so obviously we're going to go ahead because this story also ended up in the blogs. I believe that I saw this on the Melanated Room, or let me actually see here. I saw the story on the Melanin Shade Room. Okay, they first posted about this, and we're going to use their post comment section, but I'm going to go to an official formal write-up on this incident so we can get the details. But let me go ahead and pull up a nasty piece of visual for you guys, okay? In this visual, you're going to see Damaria, I guess that's his name, or Mr. Bible. Okay, he's the one in the orange jumpsuit, and Savannah Williams is the trans woman whose life he unfortunately took. Okay, I'll go ahead and remove this. Now, this write-up is coming courtesy of CBSnews.com, okay? It says that Queer Caucus A Minneapolis attorney speak out following trans woman shooting death. All right. Members of the Minnesota's Queer Legislative Caucus and the Hennepin County attorney are speaking out in the wake of a 38-year-old transgender woman shooting death, which is now being investigated as a murder. Earlier this week, 25-year-old Damarean Bible was charged with second-degree murder in the death of Savannah Williams. She was found November 29th with a gun shot wound to the head in a South Minneapolis courtyard just south of East Lake Street. The criminal complaint states that officers at the scene noticed gun shot residue on the hood of her sweatshirt, which means that she was shot at point blank range. On Wednesday, the Queer Legislative Caucus issued the following statement, quote, "We stand in collective grief and outrage at the senseless murder of Savannah Williams, a 38-year-old transgender woman brutally taken from our community. This heinous act of violence not only extinguishes a vibrant life, but serves as a stark reminder of the dangers and discriminations faced by sex workers and transgender individuals, particularly BIPOC transgender women and femmes. Transphobia has reached a crisis point, claiming lives with alarming frequency. It is imperative that we stand together, speak out, and actively challenge this dangerous ideology." Quote, "Savannah's death cannot be treated as an isolated incident. It is a consequence of a society that dehumanizes and marginalizes transgender people throughout their lives, even in the face of unspeakable loss. Black transgender women at the intersection of multiple marginalized identities are disproportionately targeted for violence and face an epidemic of hate crimes. Savannah Williams was more than just a statistic. Her life mattered. We honor her memory by calling for justice and passing legislation to create a state where everyone, regardless of their identity or profession, can live with dignity and safety." Here are the criminal complaint details. Witnesses told police that they heard a gun shot in the area at about 5:45 a.m. The charges state surveillance camera footage showed two people walking to the area at 5 a.m., but only one was shown walking out around the time the gun shot was heard. Police then used more surveillance footage to track the suspect to a downtown apartment building where management identified him as Bible, according to the complaint. After getting a search warrant, officers waited until they saw Bible leave the building and he was taken into custody. The complaint states that Bible caught his parents in the Hennepin County jail, where he told his father that he just murdered someone and he felt sorry for unaliving the victim, but he had to do it. According to the complaint, two firearms, including a 9mm Ghost gun, was found in Bible's apartment, as well as the clothing he was seen wearing in the surveillance footage. The complaint states that Bible initially denied any involvement in the victim's death, but he eventually confessed to unaliving her with his 9mm handgun. Bible says he passed by her at a Lake Street bus stop and she offered him sex. They then walked a half a block south to the courtyard. The complaint says when they were finished, Bible shot the victim at close range because she made him feel suspicious. If convicted, Bible could serve up to 40 years in prison. Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty says that her office is looking into whether additional bias crime charges can be applied to the case. She shared the following statements. Members of the transgender community have been targeted for violence in Minnesota and around the country. Our transgender community members deserve to live authentically and be free from threats and violence. Earlier this year, a person committed a mass shooting at a music party that appeared to target members of our community who identify as queer. The case remains open and active. We recently assigned a senior attorney to work closely with the Minneapolis Police Department to continue the investigation and help identify leads on which to follow up. If we are to help all members of the community feel safe, they must believe the law enforcement will not rest until the people who commit violence are identified and held accountable. We will do our part. We will continue to aggressively prosecute GUN violence to help all members of the community feel safe. This particular case remains under investigation, so while we cannot get into specific details, we can commit to doing what we do in every case, which is to do everything in our power to understand the facts and prosecute the case appropriately. If the investigation reveals sufficient evidence to prove bias motivation beyond a reasonable doubt, we would prosecute accordingly. Read cbnnews.com. Intersex. Just at first read, at first glance, at first awareness of the story, what were your thoughts?
My thoughts was not this again because, as I shared on this platform before, I have lost a trans sister. And some of the things that read in the article that you just read was the same thing read in her article. Also, to use the victim mugshot, that happened in my sister's situation and also this situation, and that's pretty disgusting.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Intersex. You saying me that this picture right here of her is her mugshot?
Yes.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So why wouldn't they use this picture then? I'm thinking that this was just a regular, I don't know, like this was just a regular picture here, but this is her mugshot.
Yep.
And they're using that as, wow. Well, this is her. This is a regular selfie of Miss Savannah Williams. Wow. Okay, continue on.
In my sister's situation, they used her mugshot, and she had they knew her, after a while, they knew her name, and she had an active Facebook and Instagram where they could have took beautiful pictures from, her page.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that tells me a lot, especially, it seems like when a woman of trans experience have a record, no matter what the record is, if they pass on the streets, it's like that's the go-to to post the mugshot and the blogs and et cetera, on the news. It'd be the mugshots, but it'd be different if it was a different situation, like if she passed in her home or et cetera, and also hotels.
Mm-hmm.
They take the mugshot if that trans woman have a record. That's the picture that they use.
Wow.
So I don't know. That's pretty disgusting to me. I don't know.
So there's like this undertone of victim blaming almost. Like, well, this person is a criminal. It's almost like a subtle way to demonize the trans woman. Wow. And they do that with Black men. They do that with Black women as well. Like if they can use a hoodie picture, if they can use something that makes us look like the criminals they in fact believe we inherently are. The lawbreakers we inherently are, the wrongdoers we inherently are, then they'll use that type of imagery to kind of communicate non-verbally to the audience. And it is really manipulative and it's really fucked up. And it's gender and racial bias.
Yes. And also I feel like the news is pretty sloppy because one of the articles I read, I don't know if you want me to say this now, but one of the articles I read, it says she was married for 7 years. Like it's a picture of her husband holding a picture of her, and I'm like, okay, so if she was married, I don't know. That confused me right there. I'm just like, if y'all knew that she was married, why not do y'all research before y'all put this story out from the guy saying that they had a sexual situation and she didn't tell and all that, if we know for sure that she was a married woman?
Right.
because now that is question, like, is what he's saying even the truth?
Even the truth, right? Because who knows, like, what they walked off for? She could have been buying weed off him, and he robbed her, and then tried to cover the robbery up as, oh, this trans woman tricked me, and I had a lapse in my mental sanity that led to da 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 da. Because now this makes me question, like, I hope that the family is having an autopsy done, even though it may look like they know what the cause of death is. I think they need to also do some type of like a, not an autopsy, but do like a RAPE kit.
Yes.
You know, to see if they can get some swabs and they can corroborate his narrative.
Right.
Because if they can't find his semen, his pubic hairs, or anything on her body, then that can be, his narrative can be ruled out.
It's just sad just hearing every time a situation like this happens, it's the oh, she tricked him and this and that's just it. It's just so disgusting because in my sister's situation, that was the same thing in the comments on the Pacific site on Instagram.
Okay, yeah, because I'm about to pull up that site.
That was all up and down the situation.
So all of my allies and all of my queer folk and trans folk and intersex folk, y'all probably going to be triggered because I'm sure that this comment section, which I have not seen until now, is going to give what it typically gives, which is rampant victim blaming and transphobia and queerphobia and all of that. So just as a trigger warning, you guys. But this is the post that Intersex is speaking of, and let's pile through, okay, and see what this comment section gives. One user says, why are they showing her mugshot when she's the one who was murdered? Shaking my head. Another user says, I really don't understand why ninjas turn violent after they figure out or are told that someone is trans or gay. Another user says, so wait, so he waited until after the sexual act was over to suddenly become suspicious, but not during. Right. Someone else says, how he didn't know that she was transgender. I don't know. They said something a little bit more disrespectful. I don't get why they don't say something in the first place. You can't expect a natural born man who's straight to be okay with sleeping with a trans woman. Not everybody gonna go for that. Someone else said, y'all need to stop just sleeping with any and everybody. Now he gay and gonna have to do it to men that look like men. Someone else says, walk past the bus shelter and someone asked, do you want pussy? And you said yes. Disgusting emoji. Someone else says, toxic masculine energy in men. Analyze my trans sisters everywhere. Rest in power. Someone else says, condolences to that woman and her loved ones. Y'all be focused on the wrong things. Someone else said the fact that his last name is Bible is wild. Someone else says, why did they use her mugshot? He couldn't tell by the eyebrows that something was up. Was it in the dark? Because the light's on. That's a trans woman. Someone else said after the sex act was complete. Yeah, okay, now that's suspicious. Okay, so actually, that was one of the less triggering comment sections so far. Thank God there were a lot of sensible people in there who were clocking the bullshit of it all. What do you think about some of the things that were said in this comment section?
Me seen it all before. Seen it all before. My whole thing is with that. Now we're about to be in 2024. Trans women is visual. It's on TV, etc., etc. Most men who's thirsty like that, after a situation like that happens, they will ask that question. Well, are you trans or were you born a woman? And most of the time, they already know the answer.
They do.
So I don't know. It's just disgusting.
So, and this is what T.S. Madison be talking about. So let me ask you a real honest question. Does trans woman have passing privilege or not?
Whew.
And it's not right or wrong because like that's a subjective, and it's a subjective thing.
She don't, but
Okay,
can I
hold on,
ask?
and hold on, and I don't even want to get yourself. I don't even want to get yourself into any quicksand. So that's okay. So right there. So some would say, because see, this is what makes the killer's situation even more obvious, because Miss Savannah, it can be argued that she doesn't even have passing privilege. You go forth and have a sexual experience with her of your own free will. You pass by a random ass woman at a bus stop. She said, "Do you want some coochie?" You say yes. Y'all go off into the wilderness, and then you commence the plowing and plumaging. And then you conveniently, after you get what you want, after experiencing what you wanted to experience, after taking her up totally on the offer for some pussy, you conveniently decide in the aftermath of getting your nut off to find her suspicious. And then you take her life. How convenient? How convenient? Because two everyday people who would say that this trans woman didn't even have any passing privilege, sir. So your whole something was suspicious, that would have been up just visually by itself. You would not even have really had to have this woman drop her drawers or expose her genitals to you for you to make a reasonable assumption that she was probably of trans experience. And even though this is so obvious to everybody else, it wasn't obvious to you. But then you choose to go forth. And obviously, in the experience itself is where you would find something to have been off at. And that's where you could have made an executive decision to abort mission because something was off and went off about your actual business. But you decided to finish. You decided to complete the session. You decided to take a woman up, a random woman at a bus stop up at that, on a chance encounter with some head or some ass or some pussy or whatever it was that y'all did. And then you conveniently use the narrative that I was tricked. I don't even think he really thought this through, Intersex.
And another thing, you didn't even, obviously you were caught, so you didn't even live far from where you were at. You didn't even take her home. So you already knew what was going on and you knew what your plan was.
And then here's the fucked up thing about it. I unalived her because I suspected. He didn't even unalive her because he knew for a fact. He unalived her based upon a pure assumption. A pure assumption. And here's my thing, because we did see, the spirit of this energy in the comment section was, well, she should have told, or she should have said something. Okay. Folk are going to argue that. But I'm trying to understand where telling someone a lie constitutes unaliving them. I'm still trying to understand the false equivalency here, because you can argue that he has a right to be upset. You can argue that he has a right to be pissed off. You can argue that he has a right to even cuss her out. You can argue that he has a right to be in his fifis, his feelings, etc. But when does lying to someone or not disclosing something to someone come at the risk of being unalive? That is a wild false equivalency. So now we can justify taking people's lives because they gave us a counterfeit bill at the register, or because they sold us bad product intentionally and gooped us, or because they did not show up to the concert and we wasted our babysit fare and our travel fare and a good outfit and a good 27 piece on an event that was not going to happen. I mean, are people really paying attention to what they're really saying? Intersex, or are people just letting the transphobia that they've already been so indoctrinated to have just jump out of them immediately at knee-jerk response?
They showing their true colors. They letting that transphobic hang. They putting that card right on out because again, trans people have relations with people. She's a daughter. She has a mother. I think she had like nieces and nephews. Like, it's sad.
The T Lounge wanted me to read his statement again. So he told his father on the phone in the county jail that he just unalived someone and that he felt sorry for unaliving the victim because he felt he had to do it. Let me see if I can find his original statement to the actual popo. Speak out, Savannah, death cannot. Okay, he's the criminal complaint. Because he at first he couldn't even stand on business because he initially denied any involvement with the victim, according to the criminal complaint. But then he eventually confessed to unaliving her with his 9mm handgun. Bible says he passed by her at a Lake Street bus stop and she offered him sex. They then walked a half a block to the south to the courtyard. Then when they were finished, Bible shot the victim at close range because she made him feel suspicious. This man unalived her under a suspicion. Under a suspicion. And even if she had not have disclosed, even if we're taking what he's saying at face value and she had not disclosed, he never even gave her the opportunity to do so. He never even clarified for himself whether his suspicions were the case or not. He took her life under suspicion.
He know that conversation was recorded and exactly what they did. They used what he said in that conversation.
And let me tell you how confident he was in the judicial system, how confident he was in this plight, is that he had no wherewithal to read the room and to be mindful of what he say, because unfortunately there have been other men who have gotten off from their crimes. Remember that football player who took the life of that cross dresser?
Right.
A few years ago, and he was on trial because he had beat that individual to death after him and his friends suspected that this person who was presenting as a female was in fact male. And then they all galvanized their toxic masculinity, went to this individual's apartment, practically barged in, bust through his door, had his homies wait outside while he went in to confront this individual and beat this person to death. This person was unarmed. This football player intruded upon this person's apartment space, etc., took their life and got off.
Wasn't it because he was embarrassed because he realized that most of the football players got catfish with the person too?
Yeah, because all of them was like, yeah, something is weird, something is off, because we always got to do stuff in the dark and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, so that's the point where you realize I'm not going to see this person again. It's literally just that easy. Like that's the part where you decide, you know what? I'm good on that because I can get head from anybody. If I gotta feel that this person might be up to something, that's your cue to go find you something else to do. You don't get to go unalive people. You don't get to do that. Just like these men don't get to unalive Black women for lying about who the father is. You don't get to unalive the woman. It doesn't matter how fucking heartbroken and pissed and angry you are. Just like a woman does not get a right to unalive a man because she walks in on him with his sneaky link in her bed. You don't get to take somebody's life because they cheated. You don't get to take somebody's life because they lied to you about the paternity of the child. You don't get to take somebody's life because they lied to you about their gender. You just don't get to do that. You don't get to unalive somebody because you lost a poker game. Rest in peace to Takeoff. People thinking that they have the literal right to take someone's life over non-life threatening situations is crazy to me. And I find it funny that all of a sudden these folks become so afraid, just like this football player who got off. But you wasn't so scared to keep your ass off the internet searching for head from random ass people going to their damn apartments in the middle of the night. You wasn't so scared, baby, that when you saw that every light in the apartment was off in this stranger's place, and you still politely allowed yourself to walk on through and to be escorted to the master's bedroom for some fellatio. All the things you should have been scared of about the haunted house, you wasn't actually fucking afraid of.
And came back multiple times.
And made multiple rounds. You didn't find it suspicious to walk your ass off into the wilderness with a perfect stranger at the bus stop, boo? It was a whole lot of other things you're supposed to be terrified of, too. And the fact that the worst thing that you imagine could happen is she lying about her gender, but you didn't consider whether this woman could have had herpes. You didn't even know what situation is. She could have had a blue waffle. Your dick could have came out crispy as hell. It'd be the selective outrage for me. It'd be the selective pussy popping for me. It be the girl, clearly, I am a adrenaline junkie girl. I'm not afraid to hook up with strangers. I'm not afraid to be with strangers in the wilderness alone. I'm not afraid to transverse suspect size of town and go to strangers' homes in the middle of the night and be in a dark ass apartment multiple times. And I can't even verify, girl, a facial recognition on the phone. I could even pick your ass out of a Million Man March, but all of a sudden, girl, I find out that you're trans, and then I'm terrorized, and I'm the proverbial victim. Make it make fucking sense. Talk to these people, intersex. I gotta go check on something real quick.
Okay. Oh, and another thing that was sad about the situation, I think they said that she was I don't want to say it. I think they said she was homeless. But I was looking up this Regina Brown situation. Yeah, that's crazy. I was like homeless, married for 7 years. I don't know. But I mean, living as a woman of trans experience is never easy, but I mean, who knows? Rest in power. Also, they basically the numbers said every I think every 8 days, a woman of trans experience end up unalive. Every 8 days. You think it's crazy because this is coming up. Um, I have I had a sister that I grew up with, who's woman of trans experience, and last year, 3 months after she passed, um, we found out she was passed. She passed in December, but we ended up finding out in April. The state already cremated her body and everything. Like, they couldn't find no information on her, et cetera, et cetera. So that was a sad situation. Every 8 days. And the more effed up part about it is 80% out of the 327 trans women who was murdered this year was a woman of color. 80%.
Okay, I'm back. Had to go check on something. Oh, I didn't even have the screen together. Okay, here it is. Come on, profile picture. Okay, so what y'all were talking about? Intersex.
Say it again.
I said, what y'all were talking about?
I was talking about the every 8 days they said a trans neighbor passed every 8 days.
Okay, yes.
And I also was talking about 80% of the women of trans experience who were murdered were a woman of color.
And speaking of that, it's some stats in this article that you sent me too. Coming from from Minnesota, ourformer.com. It says that she was a very kind, loving person. She said, my friends and my nieces, that was their favorite auntie because she always was good to them. Williams unaliving was the second highly publicized attack on a trans woman in Minneapolis this year. In February, 3 people robbed and assaulted a trans woman at Lake Street Light Rail Station. Transgender people are more than twice as likely as cisgender people to be the victim of a violent crime. Of the 41 transgender and gender non-conforming people whose unalivings were documented by the Human Rights Campaign in 2022, more than half were trans women of color. Williams was indigenous and Cuban, according to her family, in a national landscape where our place in public life is being actively challenged, where hateful rhetoric and the threats of violence continue to escalate. We must speak up, said Kat Ron, executive director of Outfront Minnesota, an advocacy group for LGBTQ Minnesotans. Advocates at the press conference Thursday said affordable housing and workplace discrimination are issues faced by Minnesota trans people. Williams, who would have turned 39 this month, struggled to find housing and employment because she was transgender. Her youngest sister, Kelly Steelday, said. So this is something, too, that I've heard a lot from my trans peers. A lot of people think that trans women, intersex, are doing sex work, out of choice when it's out of necessity and out of survival because they're not able to be employed as trans women and are discriminated against, which forces them to have to make ends meet, just like any other woman of color, whether that's with stripping or escort work or sex work, because it's not just trans women who utilize sex work for survival and to provide for themselves. This is because of a patriarchy, because of racism, because of misogyny, etc. This is something that women of color, period, intersect with, whether it's natural born or trans women, etc. But obviously that issue is then compounded, when you are a Black trans woman at that. Do you want to talk a little bit about trans women and sex work?
Yes. I just read the comments saying that I see them working everywhere. My whole thing is with that, the trans women that are working, has that works and whatever. You don't know what they go through on a daily basis, especially if they have to deal with customer service. If it's in retail, they got to deal with managers, coworkers, especially if they're not passable. My job that I just started is 3 trans women that work there. One is a manager, and it was 2 young ones, and they're just starting out in their transition. And me, I don't share it to the world that I was born intersex. I hear coworkers have conversations with me disrespecting them. Telling I think one of them, she wears a mask every day at work. They was like, underneath her mask she has a 5 o'clock shadow. They just say so much crazy ignorant stuff about her. The job honored her name change, even though she didn't get a name change. The manager is telling me what her dead name was, and it's just like, it's messy. It's a whole messy situation.
Yep.
Especially if a young girl is in the beginning of her transition and she's helping a customer and being misgendered and being disrespected. And not all jobs back trans women at the workplace. You have jobs here and there that protect the trans woman, that trans employee, but most jobs don't give a F. They don't care. They want you to suck it up, soak it up. It's part of customer service skills. There's a lot of girls being mistreated at their job and just still there, just not escort. And the ones who escort cannot face dealing with the BS when it comes to working at a job.
So clearly expression ain't heard nothing that we just said, because she also just said that's what they chose, though. People go through things on a daily. So with the comment that expression got on the screen, so what you got to realize, sis, is that you don't see all trans women everywhere. You only see the trans women you do see wherever they be. So of course, every single trans woman alive is not experienced, is not unemployed. Just like every Black woman is not unemployed. That does not mean that unemployment and workplace discrimination and housing discrimination don't exist just because you see some Black people with housing. like 2 things could be true at the same time and don't have to be mutually exclusive to one another. We know that racism is an epidemic. We know that racial bias exists when it comes to housing, when it comes to banking, when it comes to job placement, etc. as well. And just because there's an Oprah and a Michael Jordan doesn't mean that racism don't exist. Like, you gotta broaden your scope, sis. You can't just use your eyeballs to read the room. Like, you gotta really understand the system, and you gotta also listen to the people who are being impacted by that system. Just like Black women are 4 times as likely to be the victims of gun violence by way of interpersonal relationships. They have double the likelihood of also being sexual assault survivors by the time they are adult women. That don't mean that just because you know Black women who ain't never been sexually assaulted, that those statistics are not true. Because the statistics don't say everybody. So the trans women that you are seeing, like, God bless those trans women who do have a working job. And like Intersex said as well, that ain't even where the buck ends, because once you have employment, you then have to deal with, once again, workplace drama and discrimination, even on that job, which is why businesses are sued every damn day, or people go postal every damn day, because they're dealing with the conflicts, dealing with the disrespect, the disregard that takes place. Like, it's a trans woman named Maya something that I'm subscribed to on YouTube. She does a lot of, I think she lives in Louisiana or Mississippi or somewhere, and she you know, like, her employment mostly is in, like, she works at a lot of grocery stores, and she works at like a lot of restaurants, like doing waitress working, gas station work, that stuff. And she's a very, very happy-go-lucky, like, person, period. Like, she's just always very uplifting and looking at the positive side, but she also shares a lot of her experiences, and she be talking about the way that, like, people allow their children to like say awful things to her when, you know, she's cashing them out at the register. She talks about the dirty looks and the dirty stares and the mockery that people, you know, coming into her place of business demonstrate and display towards her. She talks about how people sometimes don't even want to touch her. They'll slide her their money. She talks about, like, all type of non-verbal violence that she experiences, etc., and talks about, you know, just the type of attitude she has to have about herself and just maintaining a positive outlook, just to deal with those things and not let those things bother her. But there are times where she definitely gets bothered because she's human like anybody else, and she, you know, has to fight within herself to not end up really being disgusted with people and having a hatred for people because of the way that people choose to treat her. So yes, the issue is deeply, deeply nuanced. Just like Black women can be employed, that don't mean that a Black woman is living her goddamn best life on the work, on a job floor. Her hair is being policed, her body is being policed. Y'all ain't heard about all these Black women who can't even wear their work uniforms simply because of the way God made their hips and their body, yada yada. And they're being and they're penalized, and they're being penalized because of the natural design of their bodies or the natural design of their coil and curl, and they're being asked to perm, to throw a wig on it, to look more professional. Bitch, how am I gonna make my body look more professional? And who told you that my body was a sexual thing to begin with? And why do I have to professionalize my fucking hair? I'm not a European woman. I'm not a European man. My shit is not bone straight. My hair requires a lot more management than people who came out of caves and caverns in the earth. Anyway, go ahead, intersex.
And another thing is, if she's just saying that, you know, everybody go through, then you know, test it, honey. Go to work. Go to work tomorrow and say I'm trans to one coworker. Watch how they saw side-eyeing you and watch how you be treated. Just go to work and say, oh, I'm trans. Say it to one worker. Once you say it to one worker, the whole job gonna find out. Trust me. If everybody go through the same thing and everybody is the same and that's just life and that's what you choose, go ahead and test it out. I bet you regret it.
Oh, a lot of people don't ever want to do that as a social experiment, is actually attempt to walk a mile in a person's shoes. Shawnee had said, she made a good point. She said, or you assume or think they're trans, because there's a lot of natural born women who don't have passing privilege themselves. There's a lot of natural born women who get mistaken for being men or for being transgender. Didn't Jess Hilarious just confessed to that a few months ago, that she's been mistaken for a trans woman? That there have been men that have hit on her thinking that she was an actual trans woman. And then
I feel like everybody's problem is they think being trans has a look. It's a lot of different looks of trans women just as well as women. So it's a lot of trans women you probably worked with forever. They just don't tell you their goddamn going business.
And TST had made a good point too and said that hate crime bills and or laws are not helping us. He said, I unalive because she is trans. Where's the protection? And that's why we say that, Laws are never going to protect anybody as long as the hate itself is not being regulated. So here it is. We live in this so-called free country with freedom of speech, and people want the right to be able to say discriminative things without being penalized for them. And then when that speech is argued to correlate to the way people then treat people as a result of the things they say, because what you say is connected to the things you believe in your mind, then the rebuttal is, no, I should have the right to say what I want to say about LGBT. I should have the right to believe what I want to believe. Okay, yeah, you should have the right. But that right is also being greatly contested, because what people believe in their minds, which are the things that come out of their mouths, are actually costing other people their lives. So now we got a big question around how free should speech be. And it's easy for people who want the right, who want a free speech, to want that, because they have the privilege of not having other people's speech impact them in violent ways. And even when that becomes the case, right, because you got a lot of Black people who want the right to be homophobic and transphobic and queerphobic. But then when white people use that same freedom of speech to N-word your ass to death, and to coon your ass to death, and to monkey your ass to death, and all that to death, then all of a sudden it's time to go upside niggas' heads. All of a sudden now, you know, it's time for the Alabama brawl to ensure, when, you know, the racist redneck and the hillbilly and the Karen is wanting also to have freedom of speech. And see, this is where we have to have some growing. We got to grow up, and we got to make some decisions, because as a Black person, I find it hypocritical when another community with less privilege than that of my Blackness is arguing that my privilege impacts them for the worse if I'm not conscious of that privilege, or if I'm not conscious of the things that I'm saying, etc. All groups are going to have to take responsibility for not using the sword against other people the way that sword has been used against us. And I do think when it comes to being Black, we are a hurt people, and too quick, we oftentimes justify hurting other people because of our hurt, and then we stand behind religious banter to do so. And we stand behind privileged banter in order to do so. But then Black people don't want to hear that either, because I have been a Black queer person that has contended, contested, and conflicted with my own Black community, and tried to utilize examples to them to help them to understand the plight of Black queer people by bringing up the issue of racism, etc. And Black people have had it. The Black community have had an issue with that. Black people don't want to be checked. They don't want to be checked. It's almost like the Black community actually wants a group as an emotional dumpster so they can transfer their trauma and their pain somewhere else, because we don't know how to resolve it as Black people. We haven't found a way to take over the plantation and to raid Master's house. So then, as a unhealthy deflection and alternative healing, we then just bully somebody else for temporary relief. Find the lesser man and pour into him. And Black women are seen as largely, when it comes to Black men, who use them as emotional dumpsters and punching bags. Black queer people experience that from the overall Black community. Hurt people hurting people. And because we are already emotionally and mentally lazy as fuck any fucking way, we don't really want to do the work ever, really. So we love taking the easy way out. We love taking the counterfeit healing, which is, I'm just going to bully the defenseless and transfer this hostility and this aggression and this frustration in me. And it's flawed. And mind you, we're hurting other Black people because Black queer people are Black people. Mm-hmm. So you're anti-Black as fuck, especially when you have the audacity to be Black and to be Black and homophobic and Black and queer phobic and Black and transphobic. No, you don't get to compartmentalize the issue. You anti-Black as hell. Speaking of that, I wanted us to move into the story. Hey, Aunt Deb, what's going on, Link Tamar? Of this Black trans woman who is fighting for her life right now. A transgender woman charged for murder. This is my first time hearing this story intersect, so I'm almost scared to read this. But this is from advocate.com. Okay, this is the Black trans woman who is fighting for her life. Let's read this here. In light of the Trayvon Martin unaliving, an incident in which a Black youth armed with only a cell phone and a pack of Skittles was unalived by a white neighborhood patrol member, there's been a whirlwind of media coverage debating the issues of race and justice and occasionally how LGBT folks should or do fit into the mix. Nowhere are those issues more apparent than in the case of CeCe McDonald, a 23-year-old African-American transgender woman who goes on trial in Minneapolis, April 30th for second-degree murder. It's a case that has galvanized Minnesota's LGBT community as well as transgender and African-American individuals nationwide. Too many, it served as a stark reminder that Black and transgender people experience imprisonment at a rate significantly disproportionate to that of the general U.S. population. And according to recent studies by the National Center for Transgender Equality and the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, trans people are at a greater risk of discrimination, mistreatment, harassment, and assault throughout their experiences with the criminal justice system, as me and Intersex was just talking about as it relates to expressions comments. McDonald, named Krishan by her parents, nicknamed CeCe by her friends, was charged with second-degree murder after a June 5th, 2011 incident in Minneapolis on an evening that began like many in the city. At the time, McDonald was a vibrant and creative young woman known by her friends as energetic and optimistic. She was studying fashion at Minneapolis Community and Technical College, a program that's the only one of its kind in the upper Midwest and has led many bright young students to Minneapolis' rather vibrant fashion and theater scenes for work. She lived with and helped support 4 other African-American youth, her chosen family of queer and trans kids she was trying to mentor and assist. Each person described her as a leader, a role model, a loyal friend, and notably a woman who had, say, many supporters, a history of handling prejudice with amazing grace. Her friends called her Honeybee. On June 5th of 2011, McDonald and her 4 Black friends, all of them trans or queer, headed out to Cub Foods, a popular grocery store in South Minneapolis just after midnight. The grocery store is in one of those business strips where working class and immigrant entrepreneurs struggle for the American dream. It is, writes Red Lark, a white lower middle class queer activist in the Twin Cities, in a Tumblr post in support of McDonald, a business polluted vital artery between a police station and a light rail station in a historically contested neighborhood where communities meet, mix, and sometimes contend. The older white working class who bought in during the 70s and 80s meets immigrants from Mexico, Somalia, and Central America who came looking for work or political refuge. Native people still under the GUN of colonization, African Americans who lived in Minneapolis for generations or arrived from Chicago or New Orleans in the last few years. Students, punks, radicals, mostly, but not exclusively white, gentrifiers are born in the neighborhood. Okay, so this is a very mixed community, very intersectional populace. Along the route, the group had to pass a dive bar, the Schooner Tavern, one of the first liquor establishments in Minneapolis, which had been gone strong since prohibition ended. It's the kind of place that has pool tables and karaoke, Viking games on the TV, Jetter Master Tuesdays, and free hot dog Fridays, 15 types of beer on tap, and open jams on the weekend. But as McDonald and her friends walked near the bar, 2 women and a man, all of them Caucasian, began to verbally harass the group, according to witnesses. McDonald says they called her and her friends the N-word. Here's the intersectionality, because we're still black as hell. Here's the intersectionality. This article, this unfortunate situation ran right into it. Queer, lesbian, gay, trans, non-gender conforming, still black as hell. Everybody knows that but the black community. White people know to call us the goddamn N-word, despite being non-binary, non-gender conforming, androgynous, queer, lesbian, homosexual, trans, intersex, etc. Everybody else knows that we black as hell. But nope, not the black community, girl. We're not black because we queer. Anyway, McDonald says they called her and her friends the N-word, as well as the F-word and chicks with penises. Her roommate, Lativia Taylor, told the Minneapolis Star Tribune that the man, Dean Skimps, also asked McDonald, did you think you were going to RAPE somebody in those girl clothes? Wow, gaslighting and triggering. Sadly for McDonald, a trans woman of color, the verbal harassment was nothing new, but this time she decided to stand up for herself. The group stopped, and McDonald told the trio that she wouldn't stand for their racist and transphobic attacks. Soon, one woman reportedly yelled, "I'll take you on, bitch," and hit McDonald in the side of the face with a glass beer mug, lacerating her salivary gland and slicing her cheek through the interior of her mouth. What happened next is murky still. What cops might call a bar fight ensued, with several more people joining in the melee. At the end, McDonald was lying in a pool of her own blood, Skimps in a pool of his blood. The father of 4 had lost too much blood to survive. The 47-year-old Skimps had been stabbed with a pair of fabric scissors that McDonald had in her purse. Confused and frightened, McDonald first allegedly told police that Skimps had run into her scissors as she was fighting back from the all-out assault on her, an act of protection that came with the ultimate cost. Later, she said it was a friend of hers who used the scissors to protect her. It's not clear if CeCe McDonald is sure exactly what happened, but she does know one thing. She isn't guilty of second-degree murder. Skimps died before EMTs arrived. When police arrived, they arrested McDonald and no one else. After she received 11 stitches in her face and waited 3 hours, the police interrogated her without counsel. After she signed a confession, she almost immediately recanted, says Billy Navarro Jr., a co-founder of the Minnesota Transgender Health Coalition's Shot Clinics Shrink Exchange and a leader of the Free CeCe campaign, something McDonald's attorney will be reminding juniors later this month, no doubt. After her arrest, McDonald was placed in solitary confinement in a local jail, something that's common for incarcerated transgender women, but no less harrowing because of that. McDonald says she asked frequently to be put into general housing with other prisoners. After all, life in the hole is terrifying and lonely. But Hennepin County jail officials kept her in the hole for a month for her protection. Eventually, she was transferred to a male psychiatric unit in a local facility, and 2 months into her incarceration, she was finally taken back to a doctor to check on the wound she suffered in the Schooner Tavern attack, which by then, says Navarro, had turned into a painful golf ball-sized lump. Several blogs and Minneapolis City Council member Gworl later reported that the Hennepin County medical examiner found a Nazi swastika tattoo on Skimp's chest. The report is not online. And his brother Charles Pelfrey told the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that hate speech type language coming from his brother wasn't a surprise. Quote, at times, he can be like that, yes, Pelfrey said. It depends on his mood, unfortunately. But still, prosecutor Michael Freeman has refused to drop the charges. The National Center for Transgender Equality and National Gay and Lesbian Task Force recently conducted an extensive nationwide survey of transgender and gender nonconforming individuals to evaluate the frequency and intensity of discrimination they face. What they found is shocking, but bears weight on the case against CeCe McDonald. 38% of African-American respondents experienced police harassment. 15% reported being physically assaulted by the police, and 7% reported being sexually assaulted by the police. 38% of African-American MTF male to female respondents reported being sexually assaulted by either another inmate or a staff member in jail or prison. 41% of African-American respondents reported being in prison because of their race and gender identity alone. A whopping 47% reported having been in jail or prison for any reason. What some of those statistics boil down to is that nearly half of the respondents were uncomfortable seeking police assistance than transgender people, perhaps because they are 4 times more likely to live in extreme poverty or 10 to 15 times more likely to be incarcerated at some point in their life. McDonald, whose pretrial court date is April 24th and her first trial date April 30th, was initially charged with second-degree murder without intent. After she refused a plea deal on October the 6th, the Hennepin County Attorney's Office added an additional charge of second-degree murder with intent, 1 dead man, 2 murder charges, each of which can land her 40 years in Minnesota State Prison. Supporters argued that the harsher charge demonstrates that the Hennepin County Attorney's Office continues to side with the white supremacists who attacked her and failed to acknowledge the hate crime that McDonald suffered, says Katie Burgess, executive director of the Trans Youth Support Network. There is a clear choice to be made in this situation. Do you stand with the white supremacists or do you stand with queer youth of color in our community? Hennepin County has chosen to protect the interests of hate and bigotry. As people of conscience and compassion, we're calling on them to exercise their discretion in this case and drop the charges against CeCe. Burgess and Navarro are just 2 of many leaders of the Free CeCe movement and are helping to plan a large protest at Government Center April 26 ahead of her trial date. Her supporters include several high-profile LGBT individuals such as author Leslie Feinberg, as well as local organizer and Diverse as Queers for Economic Justice Transgender Law Center, TGI Justice Project, the Department of Multicultural Life at Macalester College, the University of Minnesota's African American and African Studies Department, and Communities Against Police Brutality. There are dozens more, as well as local luminaries and politicians at state and local levels. Minneapolis City Council member Gworl released a statement saying, "I am adding my voice to the growing number of those speaking up to support CeCe McDonald and call for fairness, transparency, and expediency in her case." Krishan CeCe McDonald's case started with a tragic incident that occurred last summer that left 1 person dead. The basic facts don't seem to be an issue in the case that now centers on CeCe, a 23-year-old African-American transgender woman charged with second-degree murder. It appears that CeCe was the victim of a hate crime that involved many people, but she was the only one held by the police. Here's another example of trans women of color being targeted for hate and bias-related violence. It is unfortunate in this case, as in so many, the hate crime itself appears to have been ignored. This is some goddamn shit right here, intersex. Wow. I mean, talking about a perfect example of being black and trans, of being black and queer.
And it happened in the same city.
What are your thoughts about Miss McDonald's plight as a black trans woman? Like, how did this story make you feel? What were your thoughts?
My thoughts is exactly why I be scared to get my gun license. Well, where I live is no self-defense law. So it'd be like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. But at the end of the day, you're gonna fight to protect yourself, but you might end up, with charges on you. It was crazy.
Mary said the fact that one of the aggressors lost their life proves how vicious their attack against her was. Absolutely.
And wasn't it 3 people?
3 people. And she's the only one out of everybody who got arrested, even though one of the females on the KKK side asked her and tried to engage her in a fight, talking about, I'll take you on, bitch. And whatever took place so goddamn quick that she was hit in the face with a glass bottle, and then her assailant is on the ground, thank God, in a pool of his own damn blood, bitch, because if I'm going down, girl, you are going down with me. We both gonna go to the upper room, baby, and let God judge the situation. And the fact that there were all these corroborating witnesses, even this man's brother, Pelfrey, came forward and said, yes, my brother is a bigot. He ignorant as hell. He's an instigator. Sometimes he gets like that. But yet you're going to put this black trans woman in prison and put her on trial like she fucking OJ because she had to defend herself. Like, this is what it's like to be black in America. This is what it's like to be queer and black in America. You don't get a fucking break, baby. And God forbid you black and fucking queer, my God, today. It's like born already with a knife through you.
Yeah. And then you transition on top of that.
Wow. So now queer, just like black people, right? We got to think about what it's going to cost us to stand up for ourselves if we're being, it's some feedback in your phone, Intersect.
Oh, it's been echoing.
It's real bad too. You might have to go back out and come back in. Or maybe if you're using an earpiece, you might got to use like your actual microphone, maybe.
All right, I'm going to get out and come back.
Okay. This is what it's like to be black and fucking queer in America. Just like black people, we got to contemplate what it's going to cost us to stand up for ourselves when it comes to police. If we say something, will that escalate the situation? If we tell them what they don't have the right, no, you don't got the right to search my car. You don't have a right to enter my home. You need to back and get your foot out of my door. If that will escalate the situation, things that you have a right to say as a civilian. Now, black queer people have to consider rather them responding to physical aggression if they're going to be the ones to be treated like the damn villain in the situation, and they're the ones being bullied. And see, it's because of these type of situations why I hear intersex, which is why it's still a lot of feedback. It's even worse. Now intersex. If you have like a Bluetooth earbud, try to take it out. If you don't have one and you have a pair of headphones, you might want to try those. Like that might rectify the feedback.
How about now?
Okay. Continue to talk real quick because
Okay, you can hear me now? Everything's
okay,
fine?
Yeah, you sound better. It's no feedback.
Okay, great. It's been acting up on my end.
Yeah. But I was just saying that, like, this is why I always preach on my platform. Like, I carry, and I'm sorry. Like, I'm just, when you black, period, like, everything you do is risky, including standing up for yourself. To anyone, to anybody, to any damn system, you just rolling the goddamn dice. We just don't have the privilege of being safe or of having a feeling secured in this system as black people, regardless of cis, regardless of trans, regardless of gay, straight, and anything in between. So it's just a fucked up position to be in. But I'll tell you, I'd rather be ready than not ready. And it's just a shame that these queer people couldn't even go to a damn grocery store in the middle of the night, minding their fucking business, without a clan of KKK members, of privileged, drunk ass, belligerent, bigoted ass, pale people using racial slurs, queer slurs, fucking with them.
And a friend must have ran, because what happened to the friend?
Which friend?
Didn't they say she was with a friend?
She was with, she was with 3 other people herself.
They must have ran.
Well, they called the beatdown a melee. So apparently everybody had jumped in. And remember, she changed her story twice and said, you know, it was her scissors, but then it was one of her friends who stabbed up the nigga. Because remember, she got hit in the face. So of course, if that's my bitch, somebody getting stabbed the fuck up.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna hit my bitch in the face with no motherfucking bottle, with no bat, with your fist, with no nothing, girl. Whatever I got on me, girl, I would have turned the goddamn man purse into a damn tightrope and hung his ass with it. Like, after, you know, when it goes up, it's just gonna be up. Because you just gotta protect the serve in this moment. Like, you go down with Titanic. So I don't know whether, and you know, and the crazy part about it is this black trans woman even tried to have her friends back by even initially taking the charge. Yeah, like taking the charge for her. Like, this is some wild shit, man. This is some wild fucking shit. Wow. And to think that this woman is already in jail awaiting trial means that there's a good chance that she may end up doing some real time for a crime she's the victim of. Because look at how warped Minneapolis criminal justice system already is. That they already have her in jail awaiting trial. And have pressed the according charges and even revved them up. First it was murder without intent. Now it's murder with intent. And you know what? Minneapolis need to go up just like Ferguson did, bitch. Set that motherfucker ablaze. This is such a crock of bullshit. And it just is a perfect, unfortunate situation that demonstrates all of the fuckery that's compounded and inherited and comes with being black and fucking queer. And I want all these black supremacists and hotep ass hoes and niggas to take, I hope that everybody, like, if y'all ever hear any of those talking points from Umar, from Sister Polite, who in prison, from Psychomanic Young Pharaoh, or Out of the Manosphere, etc., that you use McDonald's story. You use CeCe McDonald's story, girl, as a way to tell them hoes, what does trans have to do with it, girl? Because these black queer people are still fucking black, girl. They're not catching a break because they're queer.
Right. And
not only do they have to still deal with white supremacy and everything that just comes with black, girl, they got to deal with this transphobic, queerphobic bullshit from their own fucking people. Just like dark-skinned black people got to live within a racist ass, segregated, white supremacist ass system, and then also deal with anti-blackness and colorism from their own fucking people. Just like black women got to deal with living in a white capitalistic patriarchal matrix, and then also deal with black male patriarchy and privilege in that fucking system.
Mm-hmm.
Baby, what is it going to take for all of us as black people, regardless of our identities and intersections, to realize, girl, that we're all in the same boat? And that it has no choice but to get better by being as one. We have nothing to lose by being together, because right now we're descending at a very fast rate through the atmosphere, because we also are in opposition to one another. Over what at the end of the day, when all of us black at the end of the day. And you really got black people out here thinking that black queer people are ahead of the curve or have some type of fucking privilege, girl. Where? Because you see one Lil Nas X in hip hop? Because you see one Billy Porter on the acting stage? Because you see what? Weird.
Yep. And Billy Porter just came out and said he got his he had paid 6 cents or something for Pose. Something like that. It's disgusting. I think he came out and said he lost his home and everything.
TS says that, I'm sorry, CTV. It's unfortunate, but it's going to probably take us having to be back in the boat for us to get it.
I agree.
Baby, let me tell you what. Baby, I'm going SHOOT my way out this motherfucker. I ain't going back in the boat, bitch. I ain't going back to the plantation, and I also ain't letting these niggas stand in my way, or else I'm gonna be in CeCe position, baby. We gonna all be in a pool of our DNA. It's fine with me. Do you think there's a conversation? Well, I guess let's move into some of these statistics that we have right here from transrespect.org. Trans Monitoring 2023 Global Update, according to November 13, 2023 of Berlin. The Trans Monitoring 2023 data shows that 321 trans and gender diverse people were reportedly murdered. 94% of the victims were trans women or trans feminine people. Globally, almost half of murdered trans people whose occupation is known were sex workers. This jumps to 3/4, 78% in Europe, who has a bigger LGBT population than the United States does. We represent less than 1%, which is why these things are dramatic. You have a dramatic impact in our community because we are already a minority within a minority within a minority. Trans people affected by racism made up 80% of the reported murders, a 15% increase from last year. 45% of trans people reportedly murdered in Europe whose migration background is known were migrants or refugees. The age group with the most murder victims was 19 to 25 years of age. Of all cases with age data available, 3/4, 77% were between 19 and 40. Almost 3/4 of all registered murders were committed in Latin America and the Caribbean. Nearly 1/3 of the total occurred in Brazil. Murders in Armenia, Belgium, and Slovakia were reported for the first time. Almost half of the reported numbers were shootings. Just over 1/4 of the recorded murders took place on the street, and a further quarter in the victim's own residence. The data continues to indicate concerning trends when it comes to the intersections of misogyny, racism, xenophobia, and whorephobia. Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Right. What a what a wordage, what a verbiage there. So I guess that's what some are classifying crimes committed against sex workers to be. Whorephobia. Wow.
Oh.
Most victims were Black and trans women of color, of course. We always gonna make up the bigger list of people being victimized by these fucking systems. Black and trans women of color and trans sex workers. Intersex. Is there a statement to be made about picking and choosing our battles? You know, CeCe McDonald's situation reminds me a lot of, what's our boy name who lost his life a few months ago in New York or New Jersey, who experienced homophobia when he was dancing to the Renaissance album. He's a dancer as well. His name is right there on the forefront of my tongue. Let me. Black man killed for dancing to Beyonce. O'Shea Sibley.
Mm-hmm.
O'Shea Sibley. Because some people were arguing, well, damn, you know, we shouldn't even give homophobes or racists even our energy, you know, to just keep on pushing. Is there an argument to be made about not even responding at all to verbal insults that sometimes lead to these unfortunate physical outcomes?
No, because if we don't fight, we wouldn't be where we're at now. I mean, not that where we're at now is even better than what it was before, but it's some type of progress. But I mean, we still got a lot of work to do. I would say no, because in each incident, the other party attacked first. So you just defending yourself at that point. Then you're just sitting there being a puncher bag, and that's no good for no one. I mean, I think I think I'm a punching bag. Just like I just told you, the two young trans girls that work at my job, I didn't defend them. I didn't like, no, that's wrong. I didn't want to go back and forth with them. I'm like, all right, I've been through this before. I'm not about to. That's not my problem. Well, it's my problem, but I'm trying to. I just started the job. I'm like, damn, it's only been 3 weeks and drama already.
Yeah. Because when everybody is a squirrel that's trying to get a nut, picking and choosing those battles become interesting.
Yeah, and also, I mean, that's why a lot of girls just just stick with the sex work, because just like myself, if I would have said something, it would have been an altercation. That would be the third job I lost this year.
Wow.
So it's like, I feel like choose your battles. I don't know. I think I'm the wrong person.
No, I think that you represent
but I
the
definitely
reality.
feel. But I mean, it is different that the girls are not Black. I can say that. But I mean, I still feel for them. I really do feel. I still feel for them. Um, and I think one of them, she identifies they and them, and it's It's a, a queer person that's their manager and was like, why won't you just be she? And it's like, if you're having this conversation with me and you have it out in the open, like you just had this conversation in general. And it's just like, oh wow, drama. But again, as to the person that was in a comment, that's what they deal with. That's what trans women deal with. So one of the trans women that I work with, she was left on the floor by herself. So she was handling customers and handling everything by herself. She passed out. And the talk about the next day at work is she was faking, she was acting like it. And it's just like people don't understand the anxiety, like the mental health of working with people. I mean, I'm sure she caught a bunch of conversations about her. Again, it's damn if you do, damn if you don't. When you defend yourself and you don't have a back-end from family who's intelligent, who has money, who's going to get you a lawyer, you're not going to have people backing. Because most of my family tell me you need to shut the fuck up sometimes.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Comply.
Conform. You don't think
this is what you get. Like
think you're the problem?
No, they don't. They think that this is what we get, and then they use the Bible to reaffirm to us that we're on the wrong track, and that these are the consequences to being outside of God's will. They do all of that psychological manipulation and violence.
And that go back to if it was a choice, because the young lady who said what she said about, oh, that's everyday life. That's what everybody goes through. And she also said it was a choice. If it was a choice,
that's the life they chose. Yeah, okay, so being a Black woman is the life that you chose then. Being American, right, it's the life technically that everybody is choosing, since we technically can get a green card and go elsewhere, right? And that's what I mean by the victim blaming.
Yeah. And somebody in the comments said something about a trans woman. I think her last name was Brown. I had researched that, and I feel like it's always going to be that situation when a guy get caught. You always going to hear, I don't know. But is that the truth? And also the lady was 53. I know a 53-year-old trans woman is not risking her life and having somebody who don't know she's trans come into their home. No.
A Divine Fleming had asked, the fuck is whorephobia? Scrap that. What is whorephobia in 2023 when X and OnlyFans are a thing? So whorephobia is a real word. Here's what it means and why you should care. It's basically the demonization of sex work and sexual liberation has been around forever. Will we ever care about the damage that it causes? Let me see if I can get a definition here. A few weeks ago, blah, blah, blah. Somebody says whorephobic is not a thing. As it turns out, whorephobic is, in fact, a thing. One you should probably be aware of, especially as the sex workers' rights movement continues to gain traction in conversations surrounding sex work, and sex workers increasingly enter mainstream conversation. This was something that Voss was eventually forced to address in yet another subsequent series of tweets. All the people making fun of the word whorephobic are telling on themselves as whorephobic, Voss wrote, encouraging any similarly uniformed readers to follow more sex workers and sex work educators. Let me see. Okay. Whorephobia refers to the fear or shaming of sexually liberated individuals, or more specifically sex workers. And like homophobia, transphobia, etc., whorephobia is deeply internalized within individuals and society as a whole, and it affects can it be found in everything from censorship and discrimination against sex workers by banks and vendors to opinions like I would never date a girl on OnlyFans, etc. Remember when WAP came out and made national fucking news? And they were trying to ban WAP, and they were slamming Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion from the highest land of the land over WAP. Like basically like the whole policing of Black women's sexuality, the whole policing of the feminine sexuality, etc., is due to whorephobia. Also, we know that religion has openly condemned prostitutes and sex works as well, which is why that work for a long time carried a very, 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 very strong stigma until you know, us kind of entering back into another hippie phase and sex workers creating things like OF pages and sex work just kind of becoming normalized, etc. But whorephobia is just a perpetual shaming of sexually liberated and or sex working individuals. And a lot of people don't know how much they've internalized stigmas and judgments around people who do sex work, whether that's adult entertainers, whether that's strippers, whether that's escorts, etc. Even a lot of people in the adult industry, you know, talk to you about things that they still go through in their churches with their families, etc. You know, because of the shame and stigma. So whorephobia is interesting terminology. Now I'm gonna say what the terminology is interesting, because I think that what they are attempting to do is a lot like what sometimes Black and queer people do, kind of like how we reclaimed the word, the N-word, and kind of made it our own and put an A on it instead of, and took the ER off, or how Black women kind of reclaimed the word bitch, or how queer people reclaimed the word queer, which also used to be a slur, it was considered a slur, etc. I think that, you know, for those in the sex work community, this is their attempt to reclaim the word, to kind of like take the sting out of what it means to be a whore. I know that I know the whole live, she loves to use this word, and because of how she uses the word whore in such a empowering way, it actually has given me a appreciation for the term whore, because she'd be like, you know, I'm a whore, I'm a proud whore, and by her just like so casually labeling herself as a whore, now it doesn't even sound like so it don't even sound disrespectful. It actually just sounds like any other normal ass word. So I think that's what whoever the people are who created whorephobia are doing by calling it whorephobia, is they are just reclaiming the word. And it actually could work if more people get on board with it. Yeah, whorephobia is basically slut shaming, essentially. Hoe bashing, yes, is all hypocritical as fuck, because we all need to get our rocks off and we all need to pay our damn bills. Get a nut and get a buck. Oh, I think I just came up with a shirt. Get a nut and get a buck. Wow, I think that's a shirt. Cancel whorephobia. It's okay to get a nut and get a buck. Wow, that's merchandise. Let me write that down. That's the thing. I'm going to be selling those t-shirts. Come on, merch, right, Devon? So yeah, you know, that's a real thing, and we can even see that whorephobia when it comes to trans women, even like Miss Savannah Williams, who probably has naysayers who are using the fact that she's a sex worker to suggest that, you know, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That this is what you open yourself up to, which is why sex workers, prostitutes, etc., still have a hard time being protected by the law, etc., because they're disregarded. They're not considered valuable. The crimes committed against them are treated as though they deserved and are asking for those crimes. Which is why a lot of sex workers don't even report the crimes that happened to them to begin with. So now that's why there's all this conversation and talk of legislation to be put in place to give sex workers protection and rights, etc., etc. But you was finna say something, intersex.
I was going to share a story in Baltimore where a trans woman got murdered, and it was like the only case that was picked up in Baltimore because her brother was an NBA player. Whoever did the crime on her, she nailed them, like his blood was in her nails.
Wow.
But because she had all types of DNA, because she was a sex worker, she had all other types of DNA on it, they dropped the case.
Wow, right. Because they couldn't get a conclusive DNA reading.
Yeah, but my whole thing is her nails broke, his blood in the nails. It was him. Like, wow. Well, but because she had other DNA, probably spit, and all that other stuff, they dropped the case.
They'll find any way to do so. And because she was who she was, that's all it took. Because they already be looking for a way out. They already be looking for a way out. It's crazy. And wrapping up, what would you like to say about, trans women still being unalived out here? So let me just say this. We're gonna have to just, I'm sorry, like this trans people are being unalived because of society. We cannot continue to stigmatize people and then think that they won't be looked at as monsters. And then
I got a question.
The
stacks that I sent you, can you share that?
Yeah. Let me see. I think I have them pulled up too. We got to do better, y'all, at the bullshiggity, because not only are we inadvertently demonizing queer people, which makes them appear to be monsters in other people's eyes, we are conflicting people who see the humanity in queer people and want proximity to queer people and are attracted to queer people. We're putting them in conflict with their fucking selves, because now they also don't know what it means for them to be attracted to those monsters that society is saying are monsters. Y'all see how it's a domino effect? You use religion and social norms in order to turn queer people into monsters, and then people who are queer attracted platonically or even queer attracted sexually, romantically, then end up having these self conflicts because they don't know why they attracted to monsters, or now think there's something wrong with them because they are attracted to monsters. So it's just a curse that keeps on cursing. And I'm just really tired of living in a society where we don't know how to separate like our personal beliefs from like human rights. Because your personal belief based upon your religious convictions are one thing. And that's a conversation for those who want that conversation. But you cannot use religion or any other attitude to dehumanize people who are actually human. And all people need to be mature enough to make those distinctions. Like, there's a lot of things I believe. None of those things have me out here initiating fights with people who ain't fucking with me. Or me being entitled to fuck with people because of their race or because of their gender or because of their whatever. And the fact that people want to use their beliefs and think that there's no correlation between your dehumanizing as ideology in your conduct and the creation of these phobias, whether there are xenophobias, queer phobias, horror phobias, race phobias, gender phobias, is wild as fuck. It's wild as fuck. If we continue to teach and preach and instill that trans people, intersex folk, that queer folk are a bunch of fucking weirdos, and then we inadvertently raise daughters and sons who are attracted to those weirdos, but they never been raised in environments that humanize these human beings. They only been raised in spaces by people who have dehumanized the fuck out of these people. God forbid that boy and girl who becomes an adult or a teenager and engages in a situation with a queer person, girl, this is a recipe for a disaster. And because nobody's lives happen within a vacuum, we all, representing the collective, always need to ask ourselves, it's only the responsible thing to do, which is to ask ourselves, what way am I contributing to this fucking issue? Because these issues do not create themselves. People are responding to social norms, religious rhetoric and teachings, family and cultural norms and taboos, and the end result is people being dead in the streets, are trapped in the criminal justice system for being victimized and defending themselves against a system they didn't ask to be in. And here's that stat that Intersex wanted me to bring up that I'm going to share right now. So we need to take more responsibility because it's going to have to start with us. And this chart is here. It says hundreds of transgender people are murdered each year. Number of trans and gender diverse people who were murdered worldwide. Do you want to talk to us about this chart?
So if you Google trans rights and Google like trans right history, it seems to me that the more rights trans women have, the more murders, the more the percentage went up. The more visible, the more rights that trans women have, the percentage is shooting up and up and up and up.
Going up. Getting higher.
When trans women didn't have no rights, surprisingly, we were not in the 300s each year. And that's sad. Like when I see that chart, that's the first thing I seen.
Yeah. Going up. Everything going up. The fucking rent, inflation, the cost of living, black femicide, transphobia. This is a mess. And I've been saying it. This is a mess. And this is what the age of the Aquarian age is all about. If we don't take a look and reevaluate what we've created, it's going to be too late for us to get ahead of the cancer that we've inadvertently created.
And people wonder why passable girls don't want to out themselves. When they know what they up against. It's scary. It's a scary situation. I thought Monica wanted to come up.
Is Monica still here? Because we have to close out because I do got things to do. But if there's people who want to hit the link and give a 1-2, y'all can. Tyrus had asked a question, and my response was he stated that he unalived Mr. Bible. Ironically, his last name is Bible. Unalived her because she made him suspicious. But nothing else was revealed outside of that. But yeah, Social constructs, exactly, Mary. We can change this. These are social constructs. These things were created out of our imaginations, and we're gonna have to use our minds to undo the boogeymans that we've created and put under other people's beds. Because the ones that are under our beds are the result of our own imagination and the imagination of others. Not Tyrus the Warlock.
Hey,
Tyrus, it's a lot of feedback in your can you hear me?
yeah, hold up real quick.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to the garage.
We got Tyrus up on the platform. Oh, this is crazy.
Hey, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hey, so I was wondering, and this is just based off of, I guess, perception and limited experience, but you had just posted that chart with the murder rates going up.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, my mindset went back to how during the 50s and 60s, lynchings went up for Black people when the past generation started advocating for themselves more, right? You can see the number of lynchings or hate crimes going up.
Yeah.
And so there seems to be a correlation, because I know, like, some of my fellow especially some of my fellow Black men don't like it when I say this, but you can hear a lot of the similarities between the race rhetoric then and the anti-homophobic rhetoric now. Right? There's a lot of correlation there.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you guys see this, if you guys see it similar.
Yeah, I mean, I always see that it always becomes a problem. It kind of reminds me of the church, where, like, it's cool as long as you don't ask us to humanize you.
Right.
Like, you know, like because we afford ourselves to act like we don't see the elephant in the room and be in denial. But yeah, once you ask us to actually see you, and you actually require us to humanize you, yeah, like, it's gonna go up. And like you said, that's happened historically. It happened when Black folk started asking for shit, checking for shit. It's happening with Black women. A Black femicide is at an all-time high because Black women now are asking and demanding and requiring the system to actually see them. And the same thing is going on with the queer folk. It's a mess, but I have seen that pattern. And to me, it seems like this is an adverse response to people who were disposable, who people had the luxury of just denying. Because in that denial, like, as long as you didn't require me to see you, it was okay for me to perpetuate homophobia. Like, those things can't be a thing. Like, it's okay for me to perpetuate sexism because you're not addressing your sex, you're not addressing your identity. Therefore, I get to disregard, and respond to that identity and those truths how I want to. So when those people then double down on their identities and require a certain level of respect and honor as it relates to that, those people who don't know that they're bigoted and who want to exist in their bubble then get frustrated because now something is required of them that they don't feel that they owe to people that they have convinced themselves they don't even have to really see. And they're just some weak ass motherfucking hoes who in the system who will take that, unfortunately, super far to the point that it costs folk their lives and their liberty. But Intersex, do you want to respond to what Tyrus asked?
Yeah. I feel like you hit it right on the nose. And when you mention that in, like, a debate with people, you should see how angry they get. They get so upset
for you pointing that out.
Because you've been calling me sis this whole time that we've been on a job. But now that I say that you have to call me sis, you got an issue. Now that I demand that you call me sis, it's a problem. Now that I demand that you put that Mrs. on there, it's the issue. And you got rights. And you shouldn't be forced to. But before I ask anything of you, you ain't have no problem using the wrong pronouns or using the her pronouns or using the him pronouns accordingly.
Right.
It was okay for me to be the good Judy and me be her all day, she all day, until you gotta officially put that shit where it matters and that it's required of you all of a sudden. So yeah, we see it all the time, Tyrus. We see the pussy popping and the selective outrage of it all the fucking time, and it's bizarre.
Yeah, it was just again, I can only, I definitely listen to you guys because your experience, you're part of the community, intersex, you actually got to live that every day. And it's just so crazy because they showed the mugshot of this, of the transgender person he was with, and I guess for me, it for somebody in that community, is it obvious when straight men or wannabe straight men, like, wouldn't they be able to recognize somebody like that? Because, like, for me, again, just personally, the mugshot kind of made it obvious, right, that this was probably a transgender person. Or am I, like, off base on that? Like, I'm trying to.
We had discussed that earlier on. I had asked Intersex if she would consider the trans woman to not have passing privilege. Her and I both agree that the trans woman does not have passing privilege, which means, to your point, that upon visual contact, he should have been able to know that this was a woman of trans experience. But then, as you're asking that, Tyrus, I gotta also deal with the other side, because I'm also the same person who also says that there are a lot of natural born women who do not have passing privilege. She easily could have been assumed to be a natural born woman, because there are natural born women who look like I know a lot of Latinos who wear their eyebrows like this woman. She also did have titties, and she had, and her gender expression was also female. So she wore the clothes, the hair, and had the aesthetic of woman. But there are natural born women who look like Miss Savannah Williams as well. But to your point, to just make, to just simplify the conversation, we agree as queer people, she didn't have passing privilege. So this whole thing of she all of a sudden appeared suspicious to you after you done bust the cakes up, after you done bust your nut, after you done moaned and had your eyeballs rolled into the back of your head, after you done walked with her into the woods and undressed her, and you done communicated with her, you done heard her voice at this point, you see what she looked like at this point, she butt naked at this point, and you go through all the way, you go all the way down the road, and then afterward, something suspicious is here, and kill her under a suspicion. Didn't even have any objective. Kill her under a suspicion.
Yeah, as the CTV, that's why I made that comment, because unfortunately I've seen too many articles that suggest this is the male version of a woman trying to protect her reputation after doing some nasty shit with the football team. Right? This came across as just another, this dude, something went down where he felt like his crew or somebody was going to find out, and he panicked and tried to do something to try to keep that on the hush.
And I caught that out when I covered that particular story, Tyrus, that it was funny to me how all of a sudden, like, he ain't want to get violent. He ain't have a point to prove until he sat with his boys.
Right.
When he was solo dolo in his head, it was like, okay, girl, I don't know what's going on. But when he made the situation aware to the boys, and then the boys all had this reaction, then they all had this hive mentality about it. And I even said then, this was more so a response to them defending their masculinity in front of each other and proving their masculinity and their heterosexuality to each other than it was about this person that they projected and directed their frustration towards. That's what it seemed like to me. Intersex, sound like you was gonna say something.
It's crazy that this happened right after Trans Memories Day and month.
Yeah, this is hey, CTV, can you bring that post up again? I know you said you gotta go, but I want to see that chart again. Because a lot of people don't realize shit goes down until they really see it in black and white, you know what I mean? Like, god dang.
Yep.
And I mean, there's a clear correlation between the public exposure and advocacy of the LGBT community and these numbers going up. I mean, it's clear as day.
Yep. It's represented in the data. That's a mesh, right?
Yeah.
So, Tyru, as a straight man yourself, like, I mean, what are some of the things you think that we can do to demystify this whole what's wrong with me as a straight man because I've had an experience with a trans person or because I'm trans attracted? How do we get men like out of this state of chaos and this identity crisis they enter into about their own attractions?
Honestly, CTV, I don't know if I have a valid answer for that. That's not something I've come across even indirectly. The best I can say is that the LBGT just needs to continue doing what they're doing, because any other situation requires people to keep their mouth shut. And I don't want my fellow Americans, part of that community, to have to go back in the closet, metaphorically. And so this is one of those things where, unfortunately, the longer the exposure and the experience goes on, then you'll start seeing a decline in cases like this, right? This is the best correlation I could give you, CTV, is, you know, I was active duty military, and obviously there's a lot of misogyny and a history of men thinking that women, you know, can't do certain kind of jobs, and then over time, no, women can be in combat. Sure, you know, there's certain things you don't want to put them in a position to do, but, you know, shooting a weapon, you don't need to be a specific gender for that. You know, driving MRAPs and things like that, you don't need to be a specific gender. And then so over time, there's, you know, guys are like, oh, wait, they can't do this. Oh, they cool. They know what they're doing, right? And it's the same thing with, I think, especially with transgender people, it's just, you got to be around them. But the fact that you guys are less than, or the fact that they're less than like 1% of the population, this is going to be tough. So I don't have a good answer for that, unfortunately.
But, you know, I think you just accidentally kind of hit on it. I think that that's also something else that we need to realize is super important, because a lot of us, like, we'll show up to the discussion, then we kind of like hear the LGBT topic, etc. But to your point, it's going to take a lot more than just kind of like intellectually approaching the issue. It's going to take actually like community building and relationship. And I think a lot of men are not in relationship to queer people to the extent that they are with their own hetero cis peers. Like, they're not in friendship. They're not in relationship. The larger community, like the dominant society, largely is not. And so, and that's why heaviest to hit that wears the crown, because where else do you direct the accountability? It's like the dominant society is gatekeeping the issue, and they're gatekeeping the narrative, and that narrative just trickles down and impacts us, just like any minority dynamic versus the majority. And so, but I think that that's super important. It's relationship. I think it's important, like, especially for those who have kids and who are raising young people, to like encourage them to humanize all people, to, you know, to find the good and the God in all people, to not reduce people to their orientation, don't reduce people to their looks, don't reduce people to their body type, don't reduce people to their beliefs, etc. Like, it's going to have to be a real strong emphasis on humanity and showing respect to that humanity that's in all human beings.
Yeah, and I wonder if, I mean, I'm sure there's ways. I just wish we can be quicker and more efficient with trying to figure out ways to go about that, because it's,
you know what I feel like? Have a discussion on a national fucking level. I feel like our government, I feel like our, like the people who control the media, like these are things that could easily be plastered on in mainstream anywhere. Like if the powers that be who construct this reality really were intended to disseminate wisdom and disseminate like knowledge, and were intentional about cultivating the healthier aspects of human nature, rather than exploiting that and capitalizing that worser aspect, I feel like easily we already could have turned the tide, because art and media has always assisted culture in shifting. So there is a way to be intentional about that. It just has to be represented in the open space, the way that we do hip hop, the way that we do the stereotypes about Black people, about immigrants, about like how we all learned this shit. Basically, it just takes a different narrative in those same spaces that taught us how to be the way we currently are.
I agree with that, because one thing I've learned, like since I've known you, is that your sexual orientation, or however, whatever gender you identify with, has nothing really to do with anything else. Like CTV, you're part of the LBGT community, but you're still fiscally conservative. You're still about saving money, and like at the end of the day, you gotta, we call, you know, the conservatives call it, you know, bootstraps, right? Pick yourself up by the bootstraps. You still gotta walk. Like whatever your situation is, you still gotta move your feet.
Yeah.
It's just, it gets, sometimes I wonder if there's a limit or a cap to that. And the reason I say that is because think about how much easier it is for men to completely get along and or tolerate women who are gay, even if they're like dressed completely like dudes and everything. Whereas the other way around, and I wonder if it's because we inherently view each other as threats as men. Right. It's and so I wonder sometimes if there's a max level cap to the amount of tolerance.
Well, I think that's actually one of the distinctions between love and tolerance, is that tolerance does cap. Tolerance is conditional. Tolerance has a capacity. It has a it has a weight capacity, but love does not. I think when we settle for tolerance, yes, it might be the lesser of the two evils as it relates to choosing between hate and tolerance, but tolerance also comes with its slew and plethora of issues, because then you get into trying to quantify so that things can fit within a tolerant box.
Right. As long as you meet this criteria,
right? Long as you meet this criteria, and so like, because that then will lack nuance, and we'll just only really ultimately end up inadvertently back in the same shit that we, you know, started at. It really does come down, unfortunately, to all that corny ass, goofy, mystical shit that's been echoed down through the centuries of that good old thing called love. It's really going to be the only thing that can really save us. Truly, it's the only thing that will open up the entire spectrum of humanity and the sacred honor for humanity in all of its splendor, regardless of like all of our adversity as human beings. So like we can live in this space and be different religiously, be different in orientation, be different in race, and be functional. We don't have to get rid of the diversity in order to have a uniformity, or in order to have in order to like collectively get along. And the only reason why we think that is just because the people who created the system wanted an easy way to the big bucks and made it about the big bucks, and therefore just are exploiting intentionally the worst aspects of human nature. So now we're under the impression that this diversity is the issue, and that we need and that we need to what's the word I'm looking for? We need to assimilate, and we need to, what's the other word I'm looking for? It's another word. The other word starts with a C. We need to like when you have to be like everything else, we gotta be like the majority.
Conform.
Yeah, you gotta conform. Like, but it can't be done. And we see it all the time in neighborhoods where you have black people, white people, gay people, fat people, Jewish people, Muslim people, all living in a single community and doing just fine amongst each other. Nobody got to give up their sense of self in order to be a part of the whole.
You know what, CTV? I think we just talked out the best way. It might or the best current way. It might not be the best overall way, but the best current way. It's crazy is to educate people better. I think the LGBT community could do that. For example, yeah, my sexual orientation is this, but I'm still productive in A, B, and C. Like, for example, like we always talk about, you know, as far as American goes, like your sexual orientation doesn't determine how American you are, right? Or whatever the values we claim to have. So like, yeah, I'm trans, but I'm still a productive member of society. I still know how to do, I'm still dope as an engineer, as all these different things. Or I'm a lesbian, but that has nothing to do with how I view fiscal policy at the federal and state level. And that's the thing, is it's taking the, especially with the LGBT, you're automatically labeled liberal or leftist, even though there's so much diversity of thought between that has like nothing to do with sexual orientation. Like your sexual orientation is not going to determine whether you support Israel or Palestine, whether you support Ukraine or Russia. You get what I mean? And so maybe that's the bigger highlight, is the LGBT not only going hard, and it sucks because it's basically me as a straight man asking you guys to do more or suggesting, but it's not just advocating based on the sexual orientation, but then also highlighting, hey, we support this, and this.
But see, but that'd be the problem, Tyrus, because queer people have never made it about their orientation.
We have
the prejudice, like the prejudice, bigoted, dominant society did. So even when we focus, because to your point, you've seen this happen in other spaces I've been in. Like, even when we're not there to do that, even when we're not there to be gay, because somebody in dominant society see that gayness, see that queerness, see that culture there, then they get to hijack the my identity or our narrative, and then become obsessed about that. So it's like, I don't know really what else we can do. Queer people historically, you can see us in civil rights. You can see us in every aspect of life. Inventors, scientists, artists, philosophers. I mean, you can see us in every regard. But if there's something cancerous in dominant society, it's kind of like the issue of sexism or misogyny. That's the men's issue. Women can only decide how they're going to respond to misogyny and sexism, but they don't get to change it because because they're not the authors of it to begin with. They only get to decide responses to that shit.
Yeah, and see, this is why I get in so much trouble on other platforms, because I'm always going to look at things from what I can do. Like on the you know the other platforms I'm on, it's like I don't tell women what they can and can't do because I'm like, well, we're the leaders, we're the men. I mean, I can only focus on what we do. You get what I mean? And so it's always uncomfortable for me to tell or to suggest to any other community, hey, maybe you could do this, this, and this, because at the end of the day, man, I'm not a target of that. I'm gonna turn off this cam and be perfectly fine, right? Like throughout the day and everything. Meanwhile, unfortunately, there's a member of the LBGT who just got unalived as we're speaking because of their sexual orientation. Like, I'm not getting unalived because of my sexual orientation, you know what I mean? Because I'm straight. And so it's difficult.
It has
it's
to
complex.
change. Yeah, like it's the people who got the problem that got to change. You know, which is why accountability has to be had. You know, like it's like, what do you tell a child who can't escape their circumstances about abuse they got to experience at home at the hand of their mother or their father? It's like when you're forced, like when your circumstances force you in, it's like at some point there's only but so much, like kind of like the same thing with police brutality, right? Like if my skin color is going to qualify me for a certain experience, there's nothing I can do about the way I present my skin color, because my skin color is what's quantifying me. It's not my character. It's not how poised and professional I am or how articulate I am. It's not about, you know, my aesthetics. If my skin color is what's qualifying me for a certain experience, that can only change because the people who use that to quantify my experience,
they matured and got out of that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to change.
And that's why I said, like, exposure and being around, that's typically always the best way to kind of change the narrative. It's going to be slow because societal change is always slow. We know this. But most of practically all of the work really has to come from my side, man. Because it's like, I see people up here, man, or on these panels when they're talking about the LBGT community, and I'm like, bro, have you ever actually experienced this, or you just saying something you heard happened? You know what I mean? Because I was explaining to my homeboy, for example, with the drag show stuff or the drag in the schools. I go, sure, that's a problem, maybe. Right? If you want to take in parental rights. But every time you guys talk about transgender or the LBGT, you guys are telling me what they could be doing or what could happen. Meanwhile, from us straight guys, I can point to actual crimes being committed against them. You get what I mean? So it's like, I'm supposed to fear the LBGT, but yet the people actually committing the crimes are... You know, it's so slow. Like, who am I really supposed to view as a problem here?
The people who your common sense tells you to, which are the people who are an imminent threat to your livelihood, and not an imminent threat to your ideology, but to your livelihood. People are choosing the priority of their ideology over prioritizing protecting themselves from those who compromise their actual livelihood. And unfortunately, maybe because us as minority people, we don't feel we really have a livelihood to protect, so we disproportionately prioritize our ideologies in return because we ain't got too many assets to worry about protecting.
You're so condensed in this country. You have to strengthen the few tools that you have at your disposal as of right now. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So we gotta and see, we're not, and that's why understanding how we look and how we sound and what we're doing and being called out, like, it helps us to see ourselves from an out of body perspective, which is why we gotta stay on the system's neck. We gotta stay on the community's neck, because the system is aiding and abetting us into the disillusion of it all, which is why the accountability is going to have to be even stronger than the system. So whenever we have opportunities to confront the system, have opportunity to confront the community at large, that is a servitude that's going to have to be 48 hours a day, because the system is at work doing the complete opposite. 48 hours.
That's what sucks, is because the suggestion I have, it sucks even coming out of my mouth, because as I'm saying at CTV, I'm like, they're the ones, I'm asking these people to put themselves in even further danger, whether it's metaphorically, verbally, whatever. But unfortunately, it goes back to your point. It's like, that's why I made the suggestion. It's like, I know that it's not a safe space. I know that you guys are gonna catch heat no matter what. But I would really wish that you guys were more spread out, and even in these Black conservative spaces, because again, that's the only way these guys are gonna learn, man. It's the only way.
But that's
a tough ask.
That's also why our allies though exist too, because our allies take up the issue in spaces that we're not. So our allies are gonna have to ally like a motherfucker, and we as a people are just gonna have to really advocate for humanity, period, because there's so many minority people just suffering, like different types of minority people suffering under this system, and the only way through is love and empathy for each other and commitment and loyalty to each other, which are also aspects of love as well.
But it's also trashing these clowns when they get out of line, right?
Oh, of course.
Like, I think one of the things that we all, like, I make this mistake too, as a straight man in any conversation. Sometimes you allow people, the moment you make any sort of suggestion to a tweak to the Constitution or to the infrastructure, right? The first thing out of their mouths is, "Oh, you want to destroy America. You want to destroy our society."
Yeah, I want to destroy the version of America that doesn't include me and my family or me and my tribe members. You damn right, I want to fucking destroy it.
But see, I had to learn, like, what I'm telling people and what I've been telling them was like, guys, our hardware, the motherboard, the Constitution is fine. What we need, especially as men, is I tell my men all the time, we need a software update. Yeah. The shit that we was thinking back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond, like, bro, we forgot the number one way is for us to survive is to adapt and evolve.
Yeah.
Right? Like I tell the people who ask me about war, like, yo, nobody's getting in the middle of nowhere yelling ready, aim, fire. Right? That's not how war is fought anymore. We got drones for that. Right? We got ships that can hit a target 300 miles out from the sea in a land target. You know what I mean? Like, we got technology for that. Like, things have changed. You got to adapt and evolve, because like Vladimir Putin, he's using World War II tactics in 2023, and he can't even beat a country using American hand-me-downs. So, and that's because we trained them on current tactics that we learned fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. Adapt and evolve. I think that's what especially straight people in this country need. It's like, yo, the Constitution itself doesn't need to change. It's the people running the show. Their mentality needs to change. Because when you look at the laws on the surface, we all should be protected. But unfortunately, you got these people who got these warped ideology, this warped mentality of what a man, woman, or whatever your gender is, and then they try to interpret the law based on that false narrative. I really hate that.
And do. And I think that to your point, the Constitution really the Constitution could actually work.
Yep.
But because the people that formed it, and then what was birthed out of it generationally, just to your point, is really not the Constitution. the people executed life after the Constitution poorly.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution revisited upon almost a literal interpretation that all human beings are what's being considered man, that every man is endowed by his creator with certain inalienable rights, etc. Blah, 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 blah. Like, if we revisited that premise from the perspective that, yes, we all are a part of mankind, and all of us, by way of being a kind of human, are endowed with certain access, a certain dignified existence, etc. Once again, the Constitution, it really could work to clear up the fucking issue. But unfortunately, the founding fathers were a bunch of colonizers and a bunch of fucking capitalists, and a bunch of fucking misogynists and homophobes and da-da-da-da. So the Constitution was just poorly executed upon. But the Constitution in principle, the Constitution philosophically, is actually a pretty beautiful ideal of humanity. But
And
humanity,
remember, with all of their faults, CTV, the founding fathers did make sure that the Constitution was considered living and breathing. That's why it's amendments, right? It's meant to change over time. They did get that right.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I think I might be a little bit extreme here, but I think one thing men like me can do is, yeah, I show my face. You know, I support with money, with my voice, showing up on platforms. Unfortunately, I think I got to take it further, which is not unfortunate because I miss my homies. But I think it just takes a lot more straight people actually hanging out with gay people on a day-to-day basis, because one of the big contradictions in this country is that we market to the rest of the world that we're a melting pot, but domestically, we're just a collection of demographics. Everybody self-segregates. Everybody finds a reason to just click up somewhere and not even bother. And as somebody who has plenty of friends in the LBGT community, it's not just good enough for me to keep contact with them in the background. I gotta keep in contact with them in public.
Yeah, and you know, it's unfortunate because, you know, I mean, like, change, it does start at a micro. So yes, you know, what we can do as well as individuals to kind of make the world that we have access to be better is always the responsible thing for us to do. You know, what community are we building? And you know, how are we showing up for the people that we actually share the sidewalk with, we share the neighborhood with, we share the workspace with, we share the local grocery store with, we share the highways and the byways with. Like, so, you know, there's always going to be a lot to argue about what the larger system can do. But yes, there does need to be just as much emphasis on just what we can do as individuals to also create the world in the likeness of the love that we have for the world.
It has to be CTV, because the only way we get any, I mean, if you think about it, any sort of meaningful legislation has always started from the grassroots first. And that's the reality, man. It always starts with us, with the boots on the ground, man.
Yeah. For sure. Well, I got to get out of here. We're going to continue this discussion. I'm so glad you hit the link, Tyrus. It's been a minute since we've seen your face over here. Got that?
I just shaved my beard off, man.
Why you shave your beard? It's the winter. We usually keep our fur.
Well, yeah, and then I forgot to put the guard on the clippers.
And fucked around and had to go bald in the face.
CTV. My oldest daughter looked at me and was like,
"Who is that man?
Grow your beard." She's like, "Grow your beard back, Dad. I don't need people thinking you're my older brother." Like,
now that's the thing. Now, cutting the fur off, it does take years off of us. It gives us that baby face again. So, you know, that could be the good. That could be the good that came out of it, is that I'm looking at 25 now again.
Man, hey, even wifey want the beard back. I'm gonna get it back.
Oh yeah, because the beard is just the our beards are like to us what wigs are to women. Like it's
Oh,
like our makeup. It's our makeup. So the beard can make a big difference, you know, in framing our face, in helping to accentuate our features, our brows, our facial structure, bone structure, etc. So yeah, the beard. How long is it going to take you to grow it back in full?
Probably about 2 weeks to get back to where I normally am. Now that's the problem. You know, I'm Black Puerto Rican, but anything past 2 weeks, and then I start looking Middle Eastern. So I got to make sure that. You know,
okay, 2 weeks ain't that bad. You'll be good by what, the middle? Yeah, probably about the first week, second week of 2024, January.
Yeah. I'll be back in full form. You know?
Back and forth. Right now, you a naked cat. Period. But thank you for being up here, man. And
thank you for allowing me up here. It's great.
Of course.
It's great talking to you too. I know we haven't chopped it up in a minute, but I remember you, and I remember that one panel you did. You really educated me, so I really remember that.
Yes, God. Well, happy holidays to your family, and keep your foot on the manosphere neck.
Absolutely. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everyone.
That was our Tarush, you guys. Intersex, this was a really great journey. We've been 2.5 hours, honey. I think we slayed. Anything that you want to leave the people with?
Again, lead with love. And I think the big thing is when allies see trans women be disrespected and get into issues, stepping in and defending and taking up and stopping the violence and et cetera, et cetera. Also, I dropped my Instagram. That's big to me. Hopefully y'all follow, double tap. I'm glad to be part of this journey.
Yes, God. I'm here for it, and I'm happy. Keep on making them steps, sis, and keep on just etching toward that light. That's what we all got to do. When you can take real big quantum leaps, you take real big quantum leaps. And when you could do nothing but crawl, then you crawl, you know.
And
but you just stay on the move. And
thanks for bringing me on the platform. I know I'm not as talkative as most. I'm a one-liner, two-liner, three-liner.
Look, and don't be, and those are the philosophers of today, honey. The people who got the people who have the most valuable thing to say are typically people of not many words, but when they do speak, they speak with much value. So it don't even take you being, laced down with thoughts and words. You speak with intent, and you speak love, and you speak knowledge and what you know. So you're doing.
And remember that chart, and remember the more rights trans women have, the harder the harder life is for them.
It's crazy.
Which was already hard in the beginning.
Yep. It's crazy. We got to continue to unpack, raise awareness, be supportive, inclusive, fight for all women, Black natural born women, intersex women, trans women. We gotta, just protect the innocent. We gotta do it. So we gotta just keep busting it down and keep raising awareness and keep demystifying individuals and communities, and once again continue to just go to the top together and band together, because we're going to need each other. No one group has ever done it without allyship, without the help and the aiding of another. So we got to do this together. But thank you for coming through, Intersex. I'm going to message you in a few.
Okay, can I share my Instagram one more time? Of course. I drop it. Make sure y'all follow me, double tap, support. I appreciate everybody. This is definitely my safe space. I don't publicly talk about these things. I It's more like private conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate the platform. I appreciate for
We
everybody for
appreciate you.
listening and taking the time
Yes,
to getting
yes,
to know
yes.
me.
And get into that motherfucking Instagram, y'all, because she be busting that content down over there, honey. So y'all gonna see Intersex in all her glory, honey. Intersex be getting her down there. Beyonce on over there on Instagram, child. So y'all get into it, girl.
Get into it.
Get into it. All right, boo. Have a good night.
All right. Good night.
That was Intersex, you guys. And once again, Intersex, her Instagram is right there in the chat. I'm gonna link it in the description box of this video too. This was a riveting episode, girl. Shout out, rest in peace, Miss Savannah Williams, Mr. Bible. You deserve every year, every conviction that you get for taking this woman's life. And I pray to God that you will be held accountable for claiming this woman's life while you continue to live yours. Terrible. You took this woman away from a family, from people that loved her, from a community, from this world, from her dreams and her wishes and her ambitions and things that she was creating and striving toward. And you played God in that situation, and you didn't have the right to. And to Miss CeCe McDonald, my God, today, I wish I lived in Minnesota right now, because I would fucking be in those streets protesting like they plan to do before trial. Now that Intersex has exposed me to this case with CeCe, the Black trans woman who is right now facing trial for involuntarily, accidentally unaliving a racist white man who was being antagonistic and aggressive toward her and her friends on the way to the grocery store. That shit is wow and is angering. And I pray to God that this trans woman not only gets vindication and that these charges get dropped, or if there's a trial, she's found innocent. I hope she turns around and sue the shit out of the criminal justice system of Minnesota and get paid millions of fucking dollars for her fucking pain, because this is insane. And this should be the one case that brings both the overall Black community and Black queer people together, because all of that shit is intersecting in this case with Miss CeCe McDonald. All of it is intersecting. So I'll be keeping y'all definitely updated on that case, child. And I'll see y'all tomorrow, because we got to get into a Nicki Minaj Pink Friday 2 review. Because you guys know I have been anticipating that album, and I have listened to it, and I want to talk about it, girl. Okay, I'm gonna listen to it tonight as well. You guys stay Gucci. Please check out all of the previous uploads. And I will see you all later. Bye.